Hi, everyone, and welcome to our practical privacy tip for today. I have with me here Farah Zaman, who's the Chief Privacy Officer at Meredith Corporation. And Farah and I go way back to our days at Nielsen. And Farah has spent many years in the operational weeds of privacy within organizations, managing privacy compliance for global organizations over time, and brings a wealth of experience. But today she's going to really hone in and give us some very practical tips when you are evaluating or onboarding privacy software vendors. And I know that's a topic of interest to so many people. So excited to hear what you had to say, Farah. And your first point is around this notion of there's no silver bullet. So what does that mean?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Teresa. And this is an area that I think most privacy professionals need to deal with. So happy to share what I've been able to observe. I think one of the realities is there really is no silver bullet. There is no vendor, there is no implementation plan that's going to go off without a hitch or that can go off without any internal sweat equity. And really, you're going to have to dedicate internal resources, staffing time, and money in addition to the fee of, bringing the vendor on to really make it successful. And also understanding that the time to really embed a new software to work within your infrastructure may take some time and up to several months. So not to be discouraged in that there's a lot of great utility out of these different features that are available, but just knowing that it's going to take time, it's going to take effort to really get it off the ground.
That is an excellent point, because what I see over and over is companies that made really quick decisions about automation software that they felt would, solve their compliance issues, and they were very dazzled by a demo where everything works perfectly and there's a lot of sample data in there. But when you log in for the first time, for you, being a little stunned that the platform is blank and it takes effort and inputting of data and configuring. So that's a great first point, no silver bullets. So let's drill down a little bit, planning and preparing. I think this point that you'd like to make around defining success is really critical. So what does that look like? What does success look like when you choose a vendor? What kind of timelines should you consider? What does ongoing maintenance involve?
Sure. So I think one key component is that often these vendors have different products and services they offer. So you want to make sure there's really clear alignment of what your expectations are for what that's going to deliver, and make sure that the vendor understands what you're looking for and you guys are clear on whether or not the suite or the specific services you have can accomplish that and what other resources will be needed to make it achieve that goal. I think another piece to keep in mind is that often to make these softwares work effectively, you need to go beyond the privacy office and talk to different parts of your organization. And they might have constraints and needs that are going to affect your timeline. So for instance, at our organization, we have a typical code freeze in which changes to the websites are not easily configured. And so we had to work in that type of obstacle when we were talking about our launch times. At the same time, when you talk about these privacy software vendors, they have hundreds or thousands of clients. So if you're waiting until the 11th hour to have something go live right before a legal deadline, you might end up needing a couple buffer days to really get everything ironed out and do the type of testing that you need to make sure it's working correctly in your infrastructure. And I think that for me was one of the most significant learnings from our CCPA implementation, is that there's really a need to have alignment and have planning around how you're going to do quality assurance testing, both from the vendor side and also your internal teams, to make sure that when there is an update or a change on either the vendor platform or your own platforms, everything is still functioning the way it should. And if something goes off the rails, there's someone who's going to catch it quickly and have the right path to escalate it to make sure that there isn't any legal compliance issue and also no impact to revenue.
I think that's an excellent point, especially your point about building in those timelines, because there's some fantastic tools on the market now that the market is really evolving, although it's still very new, and it's growing so quickly. So knowing that you have that support and what kind of timeline around support, I think, is really critical. And finally, having the right people in the room on both sides. What suggestions do you have there?
So I think that is one of the most critical components to really make sure that you're successful. And that's both from the vendor perspective and your own internal organization. I think obviously you want to do the vetting from your security teams and your legal teams, but it's really understanding how many different other parts of the organization are going to be impacted by the software rollout, and making sure you have engagement and you understand from your engineering teams or your product teams, what are the interoperability issues between the privacy software and your own infrastructure. And I think part of that is also making sure you let those teams talk directly. So while you may have a client service representative and a salesperson from the vendor, making sure you get the opportunity to talk to the engineering team or the product team so that your teams can really lay out any of the requirements or obstacles that might come along the way.
3 terrific points for those of you who are evaluating and onboarding vendors. Remember, there's no silver bullet. Really taking time to plan and preparing, knowing what success looks like, building in the appropriate timelines, and having the right people in the room. So I want to thank Farah. And if you are considering evaluating or onboarding or need ongoing help with maintaining privacy software vendors, we are here to help at BlueSky Privacy. So thank you, Farah.